good afternoon, and welcome. Welcome to the garden. Welcome to Garden Conversations with Rose on today, Friday, March 18th, 2022. It's the weekend, and for those of us who work on a 5-day schedule, we we always look forward to Friday, that day when we can get away from that work environment, where we can have some time to ourselves to relax, unwind, spend it with family or friends, or just by ourselves, just to be away from that workplace. Of course, we in the garden are always set to give you a word. So the photos and the little videos that you saw of my almond and my mango tree, they have a story to tell you. I hope you noticed something about them. If you were looking quite keenly, you would have noticed that the top of the almond tree is missing. If you look at the mango tree, you would have noticed that it looks as if it is a little off balance. However, you are seeing some promise of blossoms and maybe some young fruit. I hope you did notice that. So, of course, this almond tree, this very one right here that I'm talking about, is coming off of a parent plant that had once stood at the front of my yard for several years. It was a place of family gatherings, a chill out spot, and of course, a perfect rest from the onslaught of the sun. It served us well for many years. But after a while, the roots became a source of contention and they were a large threat. Prior to that, a bit of it, which is now this tree, had been removed or cut down or cut off and replanted right here. And so this one had itself blossomed and grown and bloomed into a large plant, so that once its parent was no more, itself became that haven for shade and rest, a cool out spot, a quiet zone that I often use when I'm in the garden. The branches spread themselves out majestically. They looked really radiant and, in general, created a very beautiful piece of the garden that I love. But there was a downside because it stood so close to the mango tree that was actually there a long time before it. The leaves sort of overpowered that part of the mango tree. So for quite a number of years, the mango tree grew a little lopsided, and the fruits on that side of the tree didn't get a chance to bear at all. As a matter of fact, the branches themselves struggled, and it seemed as if they had stopped trying to grow after a while. So after much thought, and then of course there were the leaves, because once they fell, it seemed as if they fell in torrents, and gathering them up seemed very cumbersome and hard to deal with. So after much thought, and with a little sadness, of course, the very top branches, the large and majestic ones, with all the leaves, were chopped away. I guarantee you that each of us has in our lives something that resembles either the mango tree or the almond tree. We all have in our lives things that create a source of pleasure, comfort, create some development for us, some forward movements, whether it be our jobs, whether it be our families, whether it be a hobby, a an interaction or a relationship, whatever it is, something that takes up so much of our time, brings us joy, gives us a great sense of relief, gives us a great sense of accomplishment. But that thing too has itself created avoid or has interfered with the growth and development of another aspect of our lives. We need to do some introspection and self check to determine what is it in our lives on day 18 when there are only 13 more days left in March. We need to look into ourselves to see what is it we've got in our lives that has created an imbalance. We in the garden always encourage you to remain balanced. We talk about mental balance, we talk about balance in general. So we urge you to do that. Change is never something that we tend to gravitate towards because it's uncomfortable. It takes us away from our comfort zone. It creates a measure of stress. It causes a shift that isn't always welcome, but it's something that life is about. So if it is that extra attention that you're paying to your job, if it's a family member that you are putting over another too much, if it's an interaction that is creating a bother to another aspect of your life that is preventing your forward movement, you need to think about it. It may not be very obvious, but once you would have sat down and looked into yourself, I guarantee you that you will find something that you will need to do a little shifting. You may need to do a large chopping off, as we would have done with our almond tree. You may need to do a little sprucing, whatever it is you need to do, so as to bring some clarity to another situation, to provide some air of sorts, some room for blooming and blossoming and growth, pretty much like in my mango tree. You need to think about that. I urge you today, my friends, my followers, to anyone up there who is listening to the sound of my voice and watching me as I talk to you, do some introspection and determine what it is that needs to be cut off, to be chopped, to be spruced, to be sharpened, so as to allow for a freer flow of air for your forward development and movement and for those that you love. Have a beautiful, beautiful Friday evening. Enjoy your weekend. Try to ensure that you do some self-care. Tomorrow, Saturday. And as you look forward to Monday, when we do recognize those with Down syndrome, wear your mismatched socks, brightly colored ones, because there are other persons who are differently abled within our society and among us that need to be recognized for who they are. Also remember that it's World Francophone Day, where French speakers are recognized. Remember earlier in March we spoke about Mother Language Day when we said toute langue y importance, toute langue compte, every language matters. It's World Francophone Day on Monday, and it's also a day we recognize those with Down syndrome. Do your introspection, do your self-check, do your chopping off, do your sprucing up. Allow for that free flow so that your development will take place and some balance will come to bear in your life and even with those around you. Stay in the garden, sip on your drink, lounge back in your chair, invite a friend over, but stay in the garden.